Hello, retro fans. I was going to say hello, Tetris fans, but I hope it's going to be the same anyway. So, welcome to another episode, and yes, yet another Tetris episode, I have to say, because it is the 37th anniversary of Tetris. So, yes, 37 years ago, Tetris has been introduced to the world, and since then it has made some progress. And I'd like to take you on a journey of my experience with Tetris, how I got in contact with it, and how I experienced the different versions and changes of systems where I was able to play Tetris on. So feel free, grab your preferred soda and some popcorn and lean back and enjoy this trip through history. So, well, I'm not going to talk about the whole history of Tetris, so you can read this on Wikipedia in some sort of detail. So basically, it has been invented in the former USSR, so what we know now as Russia, and in 1984. And this was basically a time where, especially in the east part of Europe, I grew up in the former GDR, so the eastern part of Germany. Computer technology wasn't that common at this time. So in 1984, I had basically no chance to get in contact with the game. So it took a couple of years. I think it was somewhere in 1986 or something like this, that I got the so-called client computer, the KC 85.2 or 85.3, and I had a chance to have this computer at home. So this wasn't really standard, that wasn't really normal. So this was some sort of luck, and the let's say the job my dad had. And basically then I started to step into computers, into home computers. And as you may imagine, 1986, something like this, there was no internet, there was no BBS system, something like this. So getting software for your home computer system was really, really tricky. And the KC was using tapes, which was quite common at this time. And there was a chance to record programs over the radio, for example, or to get in contact with other people in so-called communities. They spend time with the computer, something like this. And sooner or later, I really can't say which year it was, I got in contact with a version of Tetris for the KC. And this is what I'm going to show you right now. So here we can see the graphics are quite simple, so to say. And we have a chance to select the level. Just have to find, yep, we go. And then we can go through all this. Let's start with level 4. I think that should be some sort of playable. And the sound is indeed a bit interesting. I hope it's going to be something you can hear on your side. And as you may recognize, the graphics are a bit different to what we may know today, but this is indeed based on the capabilities of the system. And for this system and for this time, the speed and the size of those tiles are really sort of impressive. But I can't remember that I have played it a lot, so I was more looking for some other type of games like jump and runs or something like this. And for the most time I was more interested in programming games for the system. So I may have spent some time with this one, but it's not that I can really remember that I spent long nights with it. And as you may see, my stacking is indeed a bit strange right now. I caused myself into a little dependency on the left hand side, so I really have to see how I can escape from this one. And so now we're making progress on the other side. And like most of the older versions, there is just one direction of rotation. And this makes this game a little bit tricky to play if you are used to, let's say, the classic Tetris on the Nintendo, for example, or if you simply are used to play more recent versions of Tetris, like the Tetris Effect Connected, for example, or some versions you may have on your smartphone. So, but I'm not going to bother you with a 1 hour gameplay of this version of Tetris. I'd like to move on. It even recognizes that we made a Tetris. I'd like to move on to the next version I have, well, seen or I have played. So let's just finish the last 4 pieces and then let's bring this to an end. So it is indeed playable, and it was a very interesting experience for myself as well to see how this game has been can't correct, here we go, on this old, let's say, home computer. But as I said, I'd like to move on to the next one. So let's get out of this. So, and this is basically the second version of Tetris I have played in my life. And the story behind this is that back in the early 90s, I went to places which we called discotheque back in the time. Now it's called a club or something like this. And since the former GDR was, let's say, a few years behind the normal Western world, we got arcade machines in the early 90s. So, and the discotheque, the place I have visited quite a lot, was equipped with basically 2 arcade machines. One was running Street Fighter Turbo, I think, and the other one was running Tetris. And well, at the beginning everybody was just playing Street Fighter, but since this arcade machine was, let's say, occupied most of the time, we spent indeed some time on the other machine as well, and got more or less used to play Tetris in a more competitive style, since this version of Tetris offers a 2-player, let's say, experience, and you had a chance to battle yourself with either the computer or with a human opponent. And well, we spent a couple of mark, as we say it here in Germany, on these systems. And let's see if we can have a short gameplay on this version as well. So, how to play? We know how to play Tetris, fortunately. And here's the same, we just can rotate in one direction, which makes it a little bit tricky for me to adapt, but actually I got some experience with the previous version I have presented already. And well, the mission, the goal, the concept is the very same as we have seen it already. So stack parts, clear lines, and the fun thing here is that there is some sort of a mission, something like this. So here we have to clear basically 4 lines, 5 lines, I'm sorry. And then we move on to the next level, and it's getting more and more complex after a while. And with this game, I think it was the first time I have seen the so-called B version of Tetris, where you have some garbage on the screen already, which you have to clean. And I think we can't tuck in parts, so let's see if this may work. Here it is working, yeah. So it was in the other version where tugging wasn't doing anything at all. Oh, this is indeed a horrible stack. But, well, we cleaned at least something. I could have moved this to the other side. 5 lines left. Let's see if we can do it. Shouldn't be too hard. So, the lifespan of those arcade machines was indeed limited as well. So after a while they sort of disappeared, and then this whole place was demolished, and there was no discotheque at this place anymore. And I have no idea what happened to those arcade machines. I mean, back in the time it wasn't really my main interest to follow those systems, just space-wise. I couldn't have any opportunity to store them somewhere, and then that's something you just start to think about years later. And yep, as I said, that's basically Tetris on the arcade machine. Let's bring it to an end. So graphical wise, it is indeed the difference, as you may have recognized this. But yeah, that was a major step forward in computer technology as well. So let's move out of this and move on to the next system. And the next system was the C64. So almost, well, at the beginning of the 90s, I moved on quite quickly to PC technology, but in parallel I had a chance to get a Commodore 128, and fortunately with floppy disk drives and all that stuff. And yeah, but the PC was well, kind of developing quite quickly. So we moved on from the 286 to the 386, and then we started to run emulation systems on this as well. We had arcade systems like this MAME, for example, MAME, and yeah, but well, I think it was still somewhere 1993, 1994, something like this, that I started to focus myself back on the Commodore systems, the Commodore 64, for example. and we started to play Tetris there as well. And this is basically what I have spent some time with it. And let's have a look at this games we have used there. So this is basically, I think, the most well-known Tetris on the C64. It has a fantastic music done by Wally Beeben. You may know this from the Amiga, this guy from the Amiga. And I think this is basically the best music he has ever created for the C64. It's a very long title, I think it's about 17 minutes or something like this. And yeah, indeed, we played Tetris just to listen to the music. And yeah, this is not the very same setup I had back in the early 90s. This is just my personal recreation of, well, no, not really recreation, that's my personal creation of my all-purpose gaming and demo system. And I just can remember that we started to play this with very cheap joysticks, and this was not a very nice experience. And I was in apprenticeship, and we had the chance to do a lot with microelectronics. So we started to build our own Tetris controller, consisting of buttons instead of a stick. And then we started to kind of battle ourselves with this self-created equipment. And the interesting thing with this version is basically that the color of the tiles is basically random, and this makes it a little bit tricky to adapt if you are used to the classic Tetris, for example, because there you do not have this sort of coloring mode. And yeah, the random generator is a bit challenging here as well. So let's see if we can get at least some sort of structure into our board. And then I'm not going to spend too much time with this version. It just gets faster and faster over the progression, and this makes it at a certain point a bit unplayable. So the only chance, like in the standard Tetris, is to create, let's say, Tetris, so 4 lines at once, to push up your score a bit, and otherwise there is basically, well, a certain defined end of this game. Oh, misdrop. But well, it is Tetris as we know it, not too complex and not too many effects, but I still like the graphics, I like the background, I like indeed, oh, that was wrong, I like indeed the music still. And well, every now and then I pick up this game just to have a couple of lines with this very classic Tetris version on the C64. But there's another version on the C64, and this is a bit more interesting, I think, because it is not limited to one player, and I think it's about time to move on to the next version. So let's get out of this. And it is called Tetris. Wow, that 1541 Ultimate 2 Plus is loud. I haven't used it for a long time, so I'm a bit surprised about the noise. So back in the early 90s we haven't had the chance to use Jiffy DOS or to use cartridges like the Ultimate or something like this. Everything was done with the good old 5" disc and very slow disk drives. We had some turbo loaders on those disk drives as well, but the comfort has been increased drastically by cartridges like the Ultimate, for example. Yeah, and as I said, with this version of Tetris we have the chance to play alone or with 2 players. And the interesting thing is that with 2 players we can play against each other or we can play as a team. So so if we play against, then we have basically 2 screens, as we know this from the standard Tetris. I'm actually not able to control the second player right now. Not a good start, but well, sure, we are able to survive. And what I really like about this game as well is the music. It is very addictive. I have this in my recorded SID collection, and I'm really enjoy it every time this tune comes up. And yeah, let's see if we can get out of this and move on to the team player mode, because this is indeed very interesting. Now we got some sort of power-ups. Okay, if we have cleared 4 lines, if we made a Tetris, then we get a bomb. Now we can place this bomb in some places. Okay. And it makes space to the top. Interesting. Well, couldn't even remember this one, so it's really good to come back and see what I have forgotten already. I mean, more than 20 years ago. It is, I think, quite normal that I miss a couple of pieces. But we want to have a look at the other mode. So let's just finish this. Oh, there's even a high score. That's interesting. So I must have played this somewhere, second player rank. Yep, and I was quite enduring. Interesting. So, and I was talking about the team play mode. So let's see if we can start the team play. F5 for team. And here we have a very huge field. And the mission is basically to yes, now I remember. Yeah, the mission is to play it together, and if you have done something like I have done right now, if you block the part of the other player, then it sort of gets stuck in the place. I was trying to put mine under the second part to make a nice line at the button. Now we made a high score. Interesting. Teamwork. To return to the game. So, let's try it again. That was probably going to be a little bit tricky to create at least one line with the second player not doing anything at all. So I may just hook up another joystick and see if I can play 2 players at once. So, then give me a brief moment. So, now I got 2 joysticks. Let's see if this is doable with So actually it is sort of working. Just need to stay focused on the parts I like to position. As you may recognize, it occupies a lot of my brain sources. So playing 2-player Tetris and talking at the same time is a bit challenging. But I think I make good progress so far. Just need to find a way to it's not too bad. So yeah, it is working. It's a very strange experience, I have to admit. And yeah, indeed, it is required to work together. So you have seen in the first attempt that, oh, just a misdrop, that you can block parts of the other player. And this makes it a bit tricky to play then. Fortunately, the pieces are not synced in a way that they drop in the same well, speed or moment in time, whatever we want to call this. So you can get ahead with one player and you can move parts to the other side of the field as well. Yep, so that was basically my second version of Tetris I have played on the C64, and that was indeed a very funny time we've had with this version of the game. And now it's about time to move on. And interestingly, you do not have to jump forward too much, because it was almost in parallel, maybe just a year or something like this in between, that I discovered the next system, which I'm going to show you right now. And here it is, the next system. I spent a lot of time playing Tetris, and you may know this cartridge. This has been sold as an included game for the Game Boy, for the original Game Boy, this bulky, bricky one, which I have never had. So I went sort of straight for the Game Boy Pocket, because I was just a little bit behind the whole Game Boy story, so to say. And for me, this is well, the sort of best version of the old Game Boy, because it is much more compact. It has just 2 small size batteries. It is not so heavy. And indeed you got some sort of playtime out of this device as well, so you do not have to carry so much batteries. And yeah, here indeed we have the classic Tetris with this 2 game modes and different level settings and all that stuff. And yeah, it is black and white. And here, the very first time, we have the chance to turn the piece into basically 2 directions. Just have to align the screen a little bit that we do not have too much light on it. And pieces are coming with the same color, so you can sort of get used to the, well, gray tone just in order to recognize the pieces, and this makes playing this version of Tetris much more comfortable compared to the other ones. And as I said, this is the classic version that made, let's say, the game so famous. And this is basically the version I have, well, played the most back in the time, back in the early 90s. So, well, and it is Tetris with music and with the classic score system, so that you get way more points for making Tetrises instead of just single, double or triple lines. And your goal is to make as much points as possible before the game becomes so fast that it is, well, actually unplayable. So, but as I said, I was a little bit behind this whole Game Boy development, so at the time I started to pay attention to the Game Boy Pocket, so the black and white Game Boy. The next one was already some sort of showing up, and this is where I like to move on now as well. So let's just stop this one. And the next Game Boy was the Game Boy Color, which I do not have here right now. So as some kind of stand-in, I'm going to use the Game Boy Advanced SP because it is able to run Game Boy cartridges as well. And the classic Tetris was some sort of eliminated by Tetris DX, and in my opinion this is the most, let's say, complete Tetris version you can get on the Game Boys. So I have tested a couple of other Tetris versions on the Game Boy Advanced, but I keep coming back to the Tetris DX because for me it is really the version that makes so much fun to play. And the major difference is basically that here we have the chance to create different players. So if we move on to player 1, 2 and 3, the others are not defined yet. So, and this cartridge is able to save your game states, and you can see how much lines you have done already. And if we jump into this, we have basically 4 game modes: this classic marathon, the ultra mode, which requires you to finish as much lines as possible, I think in 3 minutes, and the 40 lines contest, and then you can play against a artificial virtual opponent represented by the computer. And indeed you have music as well. Just have to find my volume. And this is I think one point that's not perfect on this version, they have changed the music. So and I think the main reason is that this music now is dynamic. So if it's going to be challenging on your screen, if you have raised your stack to a certain height, then the music speeds up as well. And here you have a chance to start at a certain level, and you can see that you have a separated high score lists per level. And this is very interesting because you can challenge yourself, or you can challenge your opponents, and then you compare the score against each other. And yeah, so we spent a lot of time playing this version of Tetris, and indeed it has colors, changes the color of the pieces, and you have different music that speeds up when things are getting busy. But overall, it is, well, Tetris as we know it, not too fancy, not too much new has been added to this version. So it is very classic, but with some polishing, so to say. And it makes it very challenging and very fun to play against other players, because you have the ability to store your progress and have your personal best, and you can come back and just challenge yourself or challenge your buddies just to get more points in whatever level you want to play. And yeah, the graphics are really nice, especially on the SP version of the advanced SP, because now we got a very good backlight, we can play it at night, and therefore this is basically the most versatile version of Tetris available on the Game Boy. But yeah, the better is the enemy of the good, so to say. And or let's say there are still different systems to play Tetris on, and this is where I would like to sort of finish this video, moving on to the system where I'm playing Tetris most of the time right now. And you may guess it already, it's going to be the Nintendo NES with the Tetris Classic. So just a brief moment and I'll be back. And here we are with the Nintendo Entertainment System in its, let's say, newest, highest, whatever we want to call this version, the Analog NT Mini, and fantastic device. You can see the review I have done about this device in my previous episodes, and the version I'm going to play is not the cartridge version, because this is basically the European version, the PAL version, 50 Hz version, and I'm more get used to play the NTSC version, which I do not have as a cartridge. So if you have one Tetris Classic NTSC cartridge somewhere in your shelf and you think that's something you can give away, then I would highly appreciate to get my hands on an NTSC Tetris. So it's really hard to get here in Europe, and basically I'm searching for this. I'm looking for this since months now, but with no success so far. But fortunately, the jailbreak version of the NT Mini has the chance to run cores, and here we have the chance to just a bit confused why my screen is so set. That's, I think, something I had changed, but well, sometimes a little bit tricky to balance all those different inputs And there it is, Tetris. And this is actually the very same version. Well, now let's move to the other side, which is played at the Classic Tetris World Championship, the CTWC, which, well, is just accelerating without any end. So last year has been a blast with all those online challenges with this online tournaments. The years before it was a real live tournament, but due to COVID-19 everything has changed. But especially for this CDWC scene, this has been a major boost. We have seen so many new players entering the scene, very young player breaking one record after each other. So it's really it's absolutely amazing to watch those videos on Twitch or on YouTube. And not since then, but since I got back to, or since I started to be more interested in the NES, I started to play this classic version of Tetris here as well. And here we have all those things like starting at higher levels, making it a bit more challenging, and getting more points per lines. And this is basically the most challenging version of Tetris I'm playing right now. And as you can see, I did a couple of misplacements at the very beginning, so it's always a little bit tricky to focus on gameplay and talk at the very same time. So usually I can spend my whole attention playing the game, but yep, for streaming it's a bit different. But we are not here to make new records. It is just about presenting my world of Tetris. And as I said, this is the last version I want to present to you. And this is actually the end of this video already. I hope you had some fun. I hope you had some learnings. And there was something interesting for you here as well. Oh, I missed the chance to clear this spot as well. But yeah, as I said, this is actually the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching this episode. Thanks for joining. If you have any questions, idea, recommendations whatsoever, feel free to use the comment section. And as I said, if you have a spare copy of an NTSC Classic Tetris cartridge, I would really highly appreciate if you get in contact with me and we can some sort organize how this is probably coming to my place. And yeah, if you like this episode, feel free to hit the like button, and as I said, feel free to use the comment section. Thanks for watching, thanks for joining, see you for the next episode. Bye bye.